The following is a presentation of WLCN 96.3 FM and WLCNonline.com. This live video stream is made possible in part by WLCN's live stream technology sponsor, Me Realty, located at 602 Keokuk Street in Lincoln and online at merealty.com.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you for tuning into Viewpoint on 96.3 FM WLCN. If you have any questions, concerns, or kudoses for the station here, I guess you could say, or for Dr. Jason Wrage, thank you for coming, 217-648-5510. So thank you for coming to the Radio Ranch this morning. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Good morning.
Good morning. No C-sections or early surgeries today?
Not last night, no. A couple nights ago, I've been busy. It's starting off in the winter calving season, so that definitely gets us moving. But it's that time of year again for the large animal side of the practice, for sure.
So maybe a disclaimer for your wife that's kind of hindered on your Christmas shopping for her, possibly?
I suppose, yeah. We can use that as an excuse for a little while. So
too many surgeries, too many things to do.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, well, thank you so much. So we're going to talk about small pets. We're going to talk about livestock, folks. So please stay tuned. And again, 217-648-5510. So kind of first, we'll kind of jump into Christmas. You'd hear people say, I got my kid a puppy to put underneath the Christmas tree, or a kitten. That seemed popular like years and years ago, and now maybe people have possibly wised up.
Yeah, I think if people realize that it is a little more of a commitment, and so in general, they're probably not quite as, set on getting one right away. There are a few people that do, and a lot of times people will plan it, if they're intending to get one, plan it for them. But I think that the spontaneous nature of it's probably decreased quite a bit. And it's a lot of responsibility. The holidays are a busy time of year. Raising a puppy or kitten or a new pet is a lot of work between, the training to go outside, the adjusting to the house, the cleaning up messes, they're sleeping every couple hours. It definitely can put a crimp in your holiday style if you're wanting to do very much. So I think that people kind of recognize that a little bit. And in general, for me personally, if you're going to be home for the holidays for an extended, leave or vacation, it's not a bad time, but definitely being intentional about it's a good idea.
Yeah, and kind of thinking ahead because, January's right around, is the next month, and you're getting back into your normal routine and, et cetera.
Yeah, and getting back, you're home for a couple of weeks and then you're gone again, and so getting that pet adjusted, is going to be a chore. But and then the other thing you run into a lot that I see a lot of is, in the potty training on the puppies, it's January is obviously not a pleasant month to be outside, so that can be a little bit of a challenging hurdle to overcome, is getting that dog used to going outside, even in the conditions that we sometimes experience, not always anymore in January, can be a challenge. And so being thoughtful and planning for that's a good idea.
So it's kind of tapered off there then. So
yeah, I would say it's a little bit less than it had been before, but we still see a percentage of it. So
I know the last time you were on the air, we talked about people in 2020. They're home for a lot of that period in 2020, and they got pets. Like, we're home, we can do whatever. So
yeah.
What are you seeing, from then, kind of going back?
I think there were a lot of first-time pet owners then that, thought, well, we're home, we're going to get one. And at the time, it worked out very nice. The counterpoint to that is, the being locked at home, or, the not being able to leave and go places. A lot of these animals, they're pack animals. They have a pack mentality, so they only ever were at the house. They never saw a lot of people, so they had a relatively small, pack that they were used to. And that results in now when you go out into the public, that you take them somewhere that they have you're seeing a little more anxiety and issues with that, because those, growing up, those animals, those pets, those puppies were not acclimated, socialized. And so it is a little bit more of a challenge because of that, because and then as our life drifted back towards normal and now return to work for a lot of people, return to the office, those animals are seeing a little bit of different experience and definitely having a little bit of stress there.
Mm-hmm. And that is key, true. When you do go get a pet, like, now or in the next few months or whatever, is the key word is socialization.
Exactly, yeah. Being intentional anytime somebody has a puppy, that first puppy visit they come in, one of the things I'm big on is having a conversation about what we're doing here's our training, here's our being intentional about providing good experiences for that puppy, where we're training them to do things we want. We're not training inadvertently. I find a lot of people are inadvertently training their puppy to do bad behaviors that later they're not going to like. As a little 5-pound puppy, it's kind of cute. As a 85-pound dog, it's really annoying. And so having that conversation that, hey, we might want to think about that, or wait on this. Or the other thing I'm a huge proponent of is a qualified professional trainer. I think the value, you look, if you have a dog 10, 15 years, spending a little money up front to have professional training where you have control of your dog, where they have kind of a good boundaries, and you can definitely make a difference in their life and your life. And so, I'm definitely a big proponent of it. It is a little expensive up front, but I look at it as an investment for the rest of their life. So
it truly does pay off. So, not to put you on the spot, do we have a lot of trainers here in the Logan County area?
So in Logan County itself, there's not. Definitely in the Peoria area, there's several that we recommend, and then there's a few scattered throughout Peoria, Springfield, Bloomington area, and it just takes a little bit of legwork. I hesitate to recommend a specific one.
Right.
If you have during an exam, if they're like, well, I want to go here, I might say that might not fit for this dog. Just like, every dog's a little bit different, so some dogs require a little different level of handling, and everybody has their own kind of little niche forte in that. And so making sure that they kind of, redirect them to a place that might be more in line with what their expectations are. So.
Like, for example, we have, an Aussie, a Corgi, and then we just lost our border collie. So, herding animals are, constantly have to be busy or doing something for their mind. So you got to find that right trainer, obviously, to hold on to that breed. You know what I mean? Rather it would be
there's definitely some breed
Shepherd.
differences, and so having somebody that understands that, and like you said, the border collies are super smart.
They are.
They tend to be really high energy and very talented workers, but they also comes with some anxiety. And haven't seen yours, so I'm not saying one way or another, but a lot of them do have, because they've got all that pent up energy, a little more anxiety than average. So.
Yeah, so just find the right trainer.
Find the right fit, and and I always tell people, don't be afraid to go, talk to them, sit in on them, and don't be afraid to walk away either if it doesn't feel right. If it doesn't, walk away early and just try something else, and maybe try 2 or 3 and go back, but definitely being intentional about it.
Yeah. So you guys do, on your advertisements, so you guys see exotics. So what exotic clients do you have? That come there to the clinic? It
kind of depends. For us, the exotic, from the animal standpoint, you basically, in the veterinary field, anything that's not a cat or a dog is kind of an exotic, right? So that birds, reptiles, occasionally amphibians. Fish are a little bit different. Sometimes there are some diseases and medications we can do for them, but they are a little bit different. And then, one of our technicians has some tarantulas and a few other things like that. And so there's obviously different levels of care you can provide, but we'll see quite a few chickens. We'll see, egg-bound pet chickens, especially in the winter, become an issue, and so we'll see that. We'll see some other, kind of, some people call them exotic, some not, but definitely get a range of animals, and there's different levels of care you can do. Fortunately, Dr. George is very skilled at it. He did quite a bit of time working on some zoo wildlife as well, and so we do see a lot of that. I would say less exotics in this area, like you think about the monkeys and the things of that nature. That in Illinois is a little tighter rein on that than some other states. So. And
your favorite is reptiles, right? So.
Yeah, well, I'll take a look at anything but a snake. Yeah, if you can bring the snakes for Dr. George, but for myself, I'll pass.
That's his forte, right? So. Anyway, no. So, Lincoln's, passed a law. People can have, chickens in their backyard. What should people be doing? We're in the winter months. People aren't used to raising, chickens.
Yeah.
What do you recommend now for them for winterizing or doing?
Yeah, definitely. The primary thing in the winter is access to clean, fresh water. Making sure that we have something that's going to stay thawed if they're going to be, outside in a, non-climate controlled building, and making sure that they have that access to that fresh water. And they will need, as we get really cold and especially windy days, that really sucks the energy from these animals outside. So they're going to require more energy. And so making sure we're feeding them a good, nutritious diet. And then depending on if your intend to have layers or whatever, then, artificial lighting is something that you would want to look into, because as the days shorten, the chickens stop laying, and so you can use artificial lighting to kind of keep that going. So it just requires a timer and some lighting to keep those hens laying longer if that's what you're doing. And it doesn't hurt them, it just extends kind of their natural cycle. So,
some people are like, maybe I should, completely winterize my coop and, put all this insulation and make it hot. But really, if you make it too warm in there, and then they do go outside, they could.
Just like us, just like cats and dogs, if you want to get them used to what they're going to be experiencing. So if it is, we want a nice airtight place that doesn't have a lot of draft is important. Mm-hmm. That'll be very good for them. Depending on how many birds you have, obviously, too. With just a handful of birds, a small space where they can kind of all gather together and they don't have a draft coming through and they can save a little heat, it's going to be important. But yeah, you don't want to have a heated place where they're really hot and then send them outside during the day if they do go outside into the cold. So.
Right, just something like a good
Yeah,
windbreak
yeah,
and a
that
little
would
bit
be
of.
temperatures like we've had here where they're fluctuating a lot are harder on all of our outdoor animals. Livestock, as you probably well know, it's
Yeah.
definitely something that the swings in temperature are very challenging for them. So
Okay. What people bring in pet ducks? Do we have a lot of those?
we do have some pet
area?
ducks as well. Some people, they're kind of an interesting little bird. They definitely are messy if you have them in a chicken pen with some chickens, but they do have a quirky personality for sure. And again, you get wounds, infections. A lot of times our poultry is something where either a wild animal or a domestic animal has gotten into them, and caused some trauma. And so we do a lot of repairing in that regard as well.
Any new diseases you kind of seeing?
With poultry, the big thing is the highly pathogenic avian influenza, the bird flu or avian flu. It's H5N1. What that tells us, and depending on how scientific you want to get, the H and the N represent proteins that are on the outs. We all saw the COVID picture, the COVID virus with the little proteins on the outside of it. So the way they classify influenzas is with those proteins, the hemagglutinates and the neuraminidase. But those two, the H and the N, they represent the specific species, and so H5N1 is an important one in birds. And the interesting thing is different proteins attach differently in different species. So that one works out is the primary one for birds, whereas there's different ones for dogs, there's different ones for people. There maybe, if you recall, 15-ish years ago, there was an outbreak of dog flu, and there was a pretty good outbreak in the Bloomington area. And I think that one's H3N8. Have to double check, but my numbers. But so each species has kind of its own combination. And one of the things that we worry about, for us as an animal health industry and for the public, and what the USDA and the FDA are really worried about is that in pigs, there's a different version as well, and the big thing we worry about is that combination. If that flu gets into the pig and then mutates, it potentially could create one that matches up more with the human side, which could then obviously lead to a pretty severe outbreak.
Can people vaccinate? Is there a vaccination, for
There's
birds,
not
for
one
your
that they're
backyards
using.
at
Correct.
all?
There's not one that they're using right now. There's certainly some in the works, but from the backyard standpoint, there's nothing that we're doing to vaccinate. And then, keeping them in an enclosed space. The big thing right now is migratory birds coming through, moving from north to south, or bringing that avian influenza through. It's definitely in the area. And then they've discovered that it's been affecting a lot of dairies, and so you might have seen issues with dairies, issues with milk supply. In California, it infects a lot of the dairy cows. There's still some debate as to how fast it spreads through the dairy herd, but there's been some notices. You may have seen one about raw milk. Mm-hmm. And so the raw unpasteurized milk is a little bit of a risk, and you can talk to some professionals from the state for that level of risk. I'll defer to them, but it is something that is out there, and so being aware of that is going to be an issue. And so you're seeing a little bit of that with the dairy cattle issue, is that avian influenza affecting them and primarily causing decreases in milk production. With some, any virus stresses you, then you're more prone to other infections.
So if somebody, comes out and they've got a dead chicken, what do you recommend? Do they quickly get it, necropsy to see if it
We
is
certainly can,
that,
and we
or
have, yep.
What do you recommend that they do?
So in general, you can contact your veterinarian and see if we're getting those. Obviously, that poultry's life expectancy is not extreme. So you will, if you do have backyard chickens, you're going to experience some loss. But if you have, especially more than one, if you have one, then you're kind of that's debatable. But if you experience kind of a herd or flock issue, then contacting a veterinarian, and then there's some testing and some diagnostics we can do. There are some people that move birds commercially around the country for showing, and we regularly, like quarterly, we're testing every one of their birds for HPI, and then we're going with that to make sure they're a certified free flock. So
So if they do, have like one, is there, or even maintenance, like, to help fight against the avian flu, is there anything that they can do or not
necessarily
really?
Like providing
precautions at all?
providing a good quality food source, and then trying to keep them, like I said, if you can keep them confined, try to keep where you're feeding the birds. Usually you're attracting wild birds that come in and pick up the scraps there, or the leftovers, and so limiting that so you can feed them inside, and that will definitely decrease that risk of encountering the influenza.
Do you recommend for folks, if they do go get, a couple of new birds and want to introduce them to their flock, of possibly quarantining the new ones from the,
It's certainly not a bad
flock?
idea. And poultry, it's a little bit harder, but certainly quarantining and making sure that they're not flaring, because a lot of times what happens is there's some underlying infection. We move those animals from one place to another, and that stress is allowed to trigger that underlying infection to take off, which could then be an issue. So yeah, quarantining for a couple of weeks, making sure they're healthy, is not a bad idea. So
awesome. Well, with that, we'll take a quick commercial break, pay some bills, and we come back. We have Dr. Jason Wrage from Green Prairie Animal Hospital.
Culver's is a family restaurant. To me, that means being the place that puts a smile on everyone's face. We're famous for our cooked-to-order butter burgers and frozen custard made daily inside our restaurants. But we've always believed more menu options mean more ways to brighten your day. We source the finest chicken to bring you our tenders and chicken sandwiches. And our cheese curds. They're a Wisconsin tradition we're proud to share with you. So take the next meal shift off and let us take care of you. Welcome to Delicious.
Culver's, home of the Butterburger, 2530 Woodlawn Road in Lincoln. Whether you're buying or selling your home, the brokers of Me Realty will work with you to get the deal done. As one of Central Illinois' top producing offices for decades, Me Realty has the experience to guide you through the process. You want results? Call the brokers of Me Realty at 217-735-5424, stop by the office at 602 Keokuk Street in Lincoln, or check out local listings online at merealty.com. Full Gospel Evangelistic Center makes an impact locally and beyond through a wide range of events, ministries, and outreaches. Pastors Steve and Debbie Owens invite you to worship Sunday mornings at 10:30 and attend Wednesday night Bible studies at 6:30. Connect with FGEC online, follow them on Facebook, download their app, and visit their new website at myfgec.org with live YouTube video streams as well as recordings of services and special events. Full Gospel Evangelistic Center, 304 North McLean Street in Lincoln.
Are you sick and tired of the telephone calls, text messages, and ads in the mail for Medicare Open Enrollment? Medicare Open Enrollment begins October 15th and ends December 7th. Changes made during this time will go into effect January 1, 2025. Feel free to call me, local Medicare agent Dara Entwistle, and set an appointment to go over 2025 changes and plans. My office is in downtown Lincoln, or I can meet with you at your home if you like. Again, call me, Dara Entwistle, your local Medicare agent and your friend in health insurance, 217-651-8046.
Hello, Lincoln and Logan County. This is Chris Grau from Grau Chevrolet Buick in Lincoln. When it comes time to choose someone to repair your car, truck, or SUV, don't you think you'd feel more comfortable working with the local people you know and trust? Our team in service, parts, and detail have the tools, training, and knowledge that will get your repairs done quickly with less downtime and at the right price. Call the local pros at 217-735-4444 at Grau Chevrolet Buick on North Kickapoo Street in Lincoln.
Back to Viewpoint on 96.3 FM WLCN. Again, the phone number is 217-648-5510. Dr. Jason Wrage is with us. And before we get into a little bit more livestock here, I guess I'll point out Mabel. Mabel, our station cat, is 19 years old. She's a loving senior animal. So what advice or what have you seen in senior animals?
Yeah, well, that's a very,
instead of talking puppies, let's go to that other
we'll go kind of
end.
the other end where the two ends that require the most work, right?
Yeah.
So the big thing that in veterinary medicine has advanced in is kind of the senior care, the pain and discomfort, appreciating that that's going on and recognizing it, and then being able to do something about it as well. In the industry, there's a lot of new technologies on the human side and on the dog side, and on the cats for that. The way I look at pain is when we're controlling it in an older pet is kind of, we have a lot of different building blocks to kind of control that. You have your supplements, your glucosamine, chondroitin, oral supplements, which are okay. They help some. They're not very absorbable, but they definitely make a difference. We have something that you may have experienced in the livestock show world is Adequin. It's called a polysulfated glycosaminoglycan. Basically, the way I describe it is it's we'll say it's a kind of like glucosamine chondroitin, but it's an injectable form, and it goes to, if you picture cartilage is supposed to be a spongy material in the joints. Sometimes that cartilage gets dried out, and that's kind of the way I describe it. We administer this injection, and it helps to kind of restore that sponginess and that pain. And I know in the livestock world, on the show side, a lot of people use it. We use it a lot in pets as well. Certainly older cats like her would potentially benefit from something like that. Then we've got our classic kind of non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. They're oral medications. They come with a few more side effects potentially, but one of the things I always like to discuss is, if I have a pet that's in a lot of pain, and we think, well, this might have a few side effects, but the medication makes such a profound difference in their life that we might consider going ahead and using the medication, recognizing the risk. It's like anything else, there's a risk reward, but if it makes them that much more comfortable. So that's kind of the original things. Now we've got some nerve growth factor inhibitors. So what those are is, and I won't be able to quote all the human medications, but it's a monoclonal antibody. You see a lot of them on TV now. That's kind of the one of the big things for I think Humira is one for rheumatoid arthritis. And so what they are is they're injections. For cats, they're once a month. For dogs, they're once a month. And it's a antibody to a pain receptor. And so it stops that nerve growth factor pain. And if you think about pain as a cascade of different proteins in the body, kind of from top down, triggering that pain, and then from the spot back up, there's a lot of different proteins communicating. And what we're doing is with the NSAIDs, we're kind of taking several of those receptors or transmitters out at once, whereas with this antibody, we're taking just one spot out of that cascade, taking that domino out, and then helping them not recognize that pain. And so the two ones we use, Librela and Silencia, make a huge difference in dogs and cats, one for each. The Silencia has been approved, I think we've been using it 3 years now. Librela is about a year and a half, and they definitely make a huge difference in a percentage of patients. And so the way I look at it, there's not like a one size fits all, but there's definitely a wide range of options, and you kind of fit them all together. Maybe you need a low dose of anti-inflammatory with the monoclonal antibody, and then doing the supplement, injection, or oral as well. So there's a lot of options there.
So I know we, in the show world, use Lubricin also, too. Do they have, like, dosages? Then have you seen, people using that for their small pets, for their dogs?
Yeah, I haven't seen that one used in the cats and dogs as much. Some of that becomes there's different absorption factors,
right,
and monogastrics versus ruminants type of thing as well. So
I was just curious. You mentioned livestock, so I thought I'd circle over. Because that's Lubricin's, it's big. There. So anyway, for the large animals.
Yeah, and it's definitely a good tool to use. And like I said, in general, in cats especially, cats tend to be finicky from a dosing standpoint, so and taking medication. So that's where I think that once a month injection, that Silencia does a nice job. Is it's a good tool that they do tolerate pretty well, and they get around pretty nicely. So
wonderful. So coming, kind of leading into the live, large animals, not live, but the large animal side of it for cattle. I know as a beef producer, we've got changes this past year on the ID tags, on the RFID tags, and we can't use those metal tags anymore for tagging and tracking, can we?
Correct. So in general, from a big industry perspective, over the years, there's been different methods for tracking livestock movement. And primarily if a disease is spread, they can go back and say, oh, it came from this farm, we need to look here and make sure that nothing else has it, and then we can kind of, see what else was exposed. And so, yes, they had the metal clip tags, which were okay, but they were pretty annoying. They would get infected, they would fall out a lot, or they'd be really hard to read, and they would wear down over time, and you couldn't actually read the numbers. And now we've got the RFIDs. Time will tell how long they last. The RFID tag's just a little plastic button that you put inside the ear, and in general it causes a lot less trauma and infection compared to the old metal tags. But, it's the same technology. We've talked about cats and dogs, and a lot of people have had their pet microchipped so they can track it. It's the same exact technology. I use the same reader for all species, and it detects what that number is. And so it is an expanding area, and it's, I say, a somewhat controversial area depending on whom you ask about what we should and shouldn't be tagging. And so certainly if you're on the farm and you're not moving things around, there's no requirement for tagging. But if you're going to be moving things, if I'm required to write a health paper, then for that health paper I'm going to have that tag. And
it's not just hog or for cattle, it is sheep, goats,
exactly.
hogs. So it's not just for the cattle.
It's going to be all species, and they're going to, they've been doing it for goats and sheep. They've been doing the scrapey tagging for quite a while. So they've been
So are they going to adopt this with that scrapey tag?
They have not completely transitioned on the goat and sheep market yet to that. But the goat and sheep, basically anybody that moves an animal has to have an official herd identification tag. But it's not necessarily RFID yet. It probably will be in the future. But that program's been pretty intense and done a good job eliminated scrapey from the most part, so it does a good job tracking it down. So
if you have a beef producer that is not showing or going across state lines selling an animal there, but what they're doing is calving and then selling feeder tags, feeder calves, I'll use my dad for an example. So he takes his cattle to Fairview Sale Barn. Is he required going into 2025
to
have those tags?
The feeder calves are not required to have anything. They are nice depending on, the one thing that some markets do recognize is that there are some source verification bonuses. So some meat packing plants will offer bonuses if they can identify the farm where that came from, and that does require one of those tags. And I don't know if they still do, but for quite a few years, if one of the animals went to the packing plant, that you would get a $5 to $10 a head bonus for having that tag in the ear.
Okay.
So there was some early on, and I can't tell you today whether or not they're still offering that.
Right.
But there was some financial incentive, and what that does is allows us to, as an export market for beef, if we can source verify and age verify. Some countries, because of the BSE or mad cow, Japan specifically had restricted imports of certain ages, and so being able to guarantee that allows that market to be open to our producers.
So even our cull cows, that are, going, we don't.
Correct.
Cull cows still don't have to have the tag.
If you're going on the beef side, if you're going straight to the sale barn and then to probably a packing plant, then you should be okay. Dairy's a little different ball game. Dairy's a little more complicated. We already mentioned the HPAI and the avian influenza, and so that kind of complicates things a little bit. They're requiring some more tagging and more identification and moving those animals. But yes, right now, if anything that's going out of state needs to go on a health paper for whatever reason that they've determined, then we have to put in a official RFID tag.
So I know when this is all, kind of, I don't want to say coming to a head, but, making public known, within the livestock industry. This year here in Illinois, people, producers are like, this is going to cost me a lot of money to buy the tags. But a lot of people don't realize our Department of Ag in Springfield, you can call them up and get free tags.
Right. Yeah. They're incentivized to provide the tags because they recognize that is a kind of a hurdle for people, and so.
So I know it's a package of 100, and you even get an applicator.
Really? Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Good. Yep.
So when I told Jerry, hey, I got 200 tags, and he shook his head and goes, I don't know why.
Well, you should be set for a while, and
We're
it
set
does.
for a while. Yeah.
It
but
does make
your
it
tags
easier.
do break, from time
Yeah.
to time. I told him, and they do come in packages of 100, and I said, why not? Right now they're free. We're good for a long time, and
Yeah.
and
You
they're
never know when you
pre-programmed
want
for
to
your
expand
farm.
the herd and start hauling, shipping overseas. So.
Yeah, right. But anyway, for now, that's in Reese's dreams. So, but that costs a lot of money. But but nonetheless, it's out there for producers that just call down to Springfield
Exactly.
and they ship them, or you can even pick them
The
up.
Department of Ag should be able to take care of you and get that set up. And one of the things that people are going to, for the state, the requirements for having that on the health paper for our 4-H and our FFA and our livestock showers that go to these county fairs or state fairs. The state fair was already requiring this official RFID tag. They're going to probably be pushing that down onto the county level. And so basically anything that I'm going to be required to write a health paper for, life's just easier if you have one of those tags in from unfortunately a paperwork standpoint.
So again, I'll use us for an example. We had our cow-calf pair. She's kind of ornery, God love her, but she busted her tag, 2 days before the fair. So if you see that and that happens and, the kid's already got the health papers and, that tag broke or something, happened, what do you recommend that they do?
So in a case like that, if I'm taking something to the state fair, then probably what I'm going to do is just call up the veterinarian that wrote the paper. Most of our health papers are now an electronic and a paper copy. And so using that electronic copy and then get it right out to you, we can usually have them done the same day. And, the unfortunate thing is their processing fee for that. But at the end of the day, it is pretty rare to have a cow actually tear out those new RFID tags. So
she was ornery.
Yeah.
Or she is
there's
ornery.
always
She's still
one.
in the herd, but
usually
she's
the
just
one that does it once will do it every year. So
yeah. So anyway, but is there anything else for our livestock producers you want to go over? Anything they should be kind of aware of coming up?
I think that's going to be the primary thing is just watching that tagging. If that's something that you're interested in, and like I said, you don't necessarily have to, but it is headed that direction.
What about the swine herds? Because they're saying they need to be tagged, obviously for shows. But are you seeing that trickle down, obviously, and for the commercial breeder?
On the commercial side, typically not. Typically, they have a pretty good idea of where these big groups of pigs are moving to and from, and so they're not necessarily requiring individual ID yet. They're recognizing that that's kind of, an onerous kind of expectation on our producers, and so, and then on that side as well, if you're moving 500 baby pigs, that's a lot of work to go in and tag every one of them and then keep track of which one's which. And so
kind of similar there than if they're going to a pack or they're selling feeder pigs.
Exactly.
They don't have to be tagged, but if you're selling a boar or a gilt,
if you're putting for whatever reason you need to put single animals on a health paper,
right,
that's kind of my threshold. So
tag on there.
If you're saying I have a semi-load of 50-pound weaned feeder pigs, that's going to be a little different. So
so they really haven't trickled down into that as they have like the dairy industry.
The dairy is definitely if you're moving dairy cows now, you pretty much expect to put a tag in. So
wonderful. Well, gentlemen, do you, Lloyd and Jim, as dog owners, any questions?
I can ask you two if you can summarize them in 30 seconds or less here, since we're almost out of time.
No, you're fine.
Keep seeing all the commercials about these very healthy foods for animals that are almost human-grade foods and things like that. I know in the past X number of years there's probably been improvements in nutrition and so forth, but how much of a difference, in your opinion, do you think that makes in terms of a dog's health and longevity and so forth?
At this point there's not a lot of data that says that specific diet's going to, the Fresh Pet or whatever brand you want to farmers' dog. You see them advertised, and if you want to do it, it's certainly an option. I'm definitely a fan of the cooked food and not the raw diets, just because not necessarily for the dog, but the exposure for you're taking care of the dog's food, the dog's, you're exposed to it. It's more of a human risk exposure. People are like, well, my dog's fine. It goes out and eats X, Y, Z, and that's true. But that exposure to you is kind of where that raw diet's kind of, for me, a little risky. Just being cognizant of it. Honestly, I still feed my dog a commercially made dry pelleted food, and he does pretty well on that. And so it's definitely something that's out there, and you're welcome to, but at this time there's not any data that says it does improve a lot. So
okay. Then the other thing I was going to ask you about is, see a lot of posts on social media and Facebook about, hey, there's a lost dog over here at this corner or this place, and someone will say, hey, take it to your local vet so they can scan it for a chip.
Yep.
Someone else will say, take it to animal control. And
sure.
Is there what is the proper procedure?
Yep.
Like, do vets do that?
Yep.
Do you do it for
if
free?
somebody shows up with a dog, they're like, I found this dog, can you scan it? And we have, a little extra access to some of the microchip, the registration companies that we can call and say, hey, who's this belong to? And they'll generally give us the information if it is registered. And so, yeah, we're definitely happy to scan any pet. And then if we have the opportunity to make that connection, help make that connection. Unfortunately, a lot of them, the registration may or may not be updated. But yes, the vet clinics, the shelters, everybody has. A lot of people have them, and now if any of the ag departments with their cattle scanners can even use that scan to ascertain that number and then start tracking it down. So yeah, definitely something that you can do.
All right.
Sounds like I can get a wand and just keep it at the office in Lincoln. So.
Yeah, they don't give them away. I'll say you that.
Yeah.
Those wands are not cheap.
No, they're not. Yeah, no. Well, you have anything else? No. All righty. Jim? No, you're good. Mabel, she's quiet. She's sleeping there. Yeah. So anyway, well, thank you so much, Jason. Appreciate you coming out here and taking time, out of your busy week. And
well, you're welcome. It's always a joy to come out here and to have a little chat and kind of help people out and hopefully answer any questions they have.
And where's all your clinics?
Yep. So we have
located. I should say.
Yep. We have Green Prairie Animal Hospitals. We have 3 locations. We have our San Joe's location that does small animal and large animal. So we do equine, we do bovine. We have some pigs that come in as well, goats and sheep. Then we have our Lincoln location out on 5th Street that's currently under construction but open. So if you drive by, we're just changing the door, making a few more exam rooms just to make it a better experience for everybody when they come in, so their dogs aren't playing tug of war with each other. And then we have our Sherman location just inside town in Sherman there. So
wonderful. Well, thank you so much. The Lord and weather willing, folks, we'll be back next week. Thank you for tuning in.
This live video stream is made possible in part by WLCN's live stream technology sponsor, Me Realty, located at 602 Keokuk Street in Lincoln, and online at merealty.com. The preceding program is a presentation of WLCN 96.3 FM and WLCNonline.com.